Howdy folks, it's Adriel, the hunting gear guy. Today I wanted to show you guys how to disassemble and reassemble an SKS. I'm also going to clean it in between, so if you don't want that part, check out the description. It's down below. They make it kind of hard to find right now. You hit a little arrow, but I'll put some links in there so you can skip ahead to the assembly or disassembly if you want to. I'm going to show first disassemble, then clean, then assemble as I go. So first things first, my hinged magazine here is closed. I'm just going to make sure that my magazine is empty and my chamber is empty. I always do that when you're about to clean because you don't want to like throw an oopsie daisy through your wall or through something more important than that. I'm going to clean this thing as if it was shooting corrosive. Which if you've shot corrosive through your SKS, you definitely want to clean it that day. You want to make sure that you're right on top of that stuff. So let me kind of get started here. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show this in real time, just so that one of the things I hate is watching a video and then having to skip back and forth. So I'm actually going to do this in real time so you guys can see the whole thing. On the right side of the receiver, there's this little tab here. I'm going to pull up on it. It's quite hard to pull. You may want to use like a brass case or something like that if it's kind of sticky on your gun. Let's throw this on my table. Let's see if I can do this. This is a little bit awkward. Like for you, I would pop it underneath my arm, but I want to show it for you guys really easily, right? So there it is on the side. You'll have to pull it just up to that angle right there, and then you should be able to wiggle it out the side. Push back on the, oh, I should move that forward. That relieves a lot of tension. And once that pin is out there, then your dust cover should come off. There's my dust cover. It might get a little bit gunky, but it's not critical. I definitely don't want it to rust, but it's not critical. Your bolt and bolt carrier should come right out there. Your bolt might get left behind depending on how you're pulling it out. They just come apart real easy. I should just throw this stuff off to the side here. There's your bolt carrier and your spring. You'll see that the spring, the wiggly piece there, goes in there first. That's because this is the only part that needs to be guided as it's going through. All right, my bolts out. Well, I want to take apart the, take this trigger off of here. Now, if you've got something handy, I like to use the commoner's tool for this, which is a 760 by 39. And my safety is on. It's up, that's on. If I pull the trigger, it doesn't want to move. And I'm going to push on this this little dimple at the back here. These can be quite stiff. And you heard that click there. That's where it went loose. I'm going to put that around to the side. And now my trigger group should pull out so easily. This is old surplus stuff, right? So it's not going to pull out easily. There's my trigger and hammer and all that kind of stuff. All that group there. It's out. Now I can pull out this fixed magazine. It'll just pop out like this. See, it's got that hook kind of thing on the end. That hooks onto a metal piece on the inside here. So I can pop that guy off to the side. Now pull the stock off. Let's start up here with the gas tube. See this lever here? This is also, again, one of those parts that if it's really stiff, if it's like brand new from the factory after being refurbished, you might need to use like a tool on here. Try not to scratch it though. So try to use like if you've got like a brass punch or something like that and you want to use that to dig in there, fine. Or if you're just going to rat your fingers, that's an option as well. You're going to want to pull it up to right about there. And then you can start wiggling this gas tube cover over here. Oh, it's got another name, receiver cover. I don't know. Right at the top here. If this is rusted, it's going to be really, really hard to move. So just wiggle it very carefully side to side. You don't want to actually like distort this this end piece here. You just want to wiggle it and get it off that crud that could have accumulated on that piece there. Once you've got this guy out, you can take out your gas piston. Take it out the right way. That'll work. There we go. Now, if it's kind of stuck in there, what you might need to do is kind of ratchet to one side so it's sticking out there and hammer it really hard so it comes out. They'll get a bunch of crap around here and inside this tube as well, and that'll make it kind of hard to separate these two. Let me put those guys off to the side. Now this top here, depending on how tight your bayonet to the receiver fit might be, you might actually have to pull the bayonet out a little bit before you take this off. Or you might just be able to pull it loose like that and then pull it off. There we go. There's my wood stock. I don't have to do any cleaning on this. It's fine as is. If you've got like a factory one, it might have a bunch of cruddy cosmoline on it and that kind of thing. If you want to pull your cleaning rod out, you can move this bayonet out, and then that'll allow you to pull the cleaning rod out. I never use this cleaning rod. It's steel. It's going to mess up my bore if I like get it off center in there. I'd rather use my nice coated cleaning rod, or aluminum cleaning rod, or a brass cleaning rod, something that's not going to mar up. I mean, it's not like these are super expensive rifles, but they're not making any more of them, right? So I'd rather keep good care of it if I can. So now I've disassembled this thing. Let's get to cleaning it. Let me get a little bit closer here for this part. When I'm cleaning the bolt, what I like to do is just use some of this this blue kind of shop towel stuff to just like wipe off the crud that's on there first. If it's particularly hard to wipe off, you might want to use an oil or something that's mild for it. I've used some of this this corrosive cleaner stuff on it sometimes. Just as more of like a solvent, like just something wet that's handy, because I kind of use it on other stuff as well. So it's kind of just available to me, and it just cleans a little bit better than an oil, which, you know, does okay, but isn't really like a cleaning solution to say, right? And I can see I cleaned this SKS like the other night in anticipation for this video. I didn't want to get like super dirty hands because I wanted to do 3 of these videos, and it's still pulling off some dirt off of this this bolt. So either I didn't do a good enough job cleaning it the other night, or the cleaner's just that good, and it's pulling off some stuff that is inconsequential. So I'm just cleaning around the bolt face here, trying to get in under the grooves. If you've got some dental picks, these are super awesome to pick up from like a Princess Auto here in Canada, or like a Harbor Freight or something like that in the US. And what you can do is just kind of pick underneath that extractor groove. If you're shooting like some nasty surplus stuff, you might have ripped some rims off. Maybe they're still stuck in there. Maybe there's some chunks of steel or whatever. So just nice to get in there and clean it out. Now, if you want to do a deep clean on this bolt, what you're going to have to do is hammer out the extractor on the side of the bolt there. You see that pin there? I would have to knock that out. Now, keep in mind, that pin is super hard to hit out on some of these things. You really have to beat the heck out of them. You're going to need a steel drift or driving pin to knock that guy out, and it's going to have to be the right size. You can't use something smaller, you'll bend it. You can't use something larger, it won't fit. So a good size punch kit is definitely going to help with knocking those out. In terms of this bolt, I know that it's fairly clean because, again, I cleaned it the other night, and I don't really feel like beating the heck out of it on camera here. So do that if you want to. Now that I've used that water-based cleaner, what I'm going to do next is get in there with some oil. I have some spray oil, which is kind of nice, but for something like this, I'm just going to go ahead and throw some just general purpose oil on here. I'm putting on pretty liberally because I need to like displace that water I just got in there, and then I'll just wipe it clean with this shop cloth here. And that's looking fine. Now I want to check to make sure that my firing pin is free to move back and forth. You could do a rattle test with it, and I can hear this one rattling. It's a little bit muted because of the oil that's in there. What I might do is just put this off to the side just so it can drip out. But other than that, my bolt is nice and clean. Now, not any order or anything like that, but here's my dust cover. I'm just going to go ahead and just give it a quick wipe. This is, again, pretty easy. It's a pretty accessible channel in there, and giving it a quick wipe is very easy to do. If you need help like getting some stuff in on the receiver dust cover, grab a drift or a pencil or something like that, and then just like work around there. Try not to use something steel and like scratch it, because this is all like, you know, just regular steel. Close enough. Again, not a critical part. If anything, you just want to really make sure that you've got the tops of this dust cover nice and clean. You definitely don't want any like cosmetic damage on the outside from exposure to moisture or anything like that. So give it a good wipe. Make sure it's nice and clean. Again, if you have like a rag that's starting to get oily, where's my oil spot? There it is. You can just kind of hit it with that, and it'll just put like a real light sheen of oil on there. Next, my bolt carrier. Now I'm just going to quickly clean off. You can remove this spring if you want to. I could show you how. Here, let me just pop that down a little bit more. All I'm going to do here, you see that little clip there? You see how it's got an angle on it? I push down on the spring to make it loose, and then I'm just going to pull this clip off. It's facing, it's both ways. It works both ways, so no problem there. That's a lot of power. And then I can go ahead and pull that guy off. Oh man, this is going to make a mess anywhere I put it. Let me get some paper towel here. I can see it's, still smells like that Cosmoline. Some of these parts are better cleaned than others in terms of the Cosmoline. There's that pin, that recoil guide pin there. And there's that center pin there as well. So I'm just going to pull it out. Give it a quick little wipe here. And again, I don't think this is super necessary. Now if you want to, oh man, I'm going to ruin a pipe cleaner with this one operation alone. But you can get some pipe cleaners. Go to your dollar store and get like hundreds of these things because they're super useful for this kind of stuff. I'm just going to throw it in there. It's not really catching the edges, so I'm going to do is just bend it in the middle. And now, boom, I got twice the width on my pipe cleaner. Oh yeah, it's nice and greasy now. Ugh. I'm just going to go ahead and swirl it around in there. Perfect. All right, let's put that to the side. Whenever I need some preservative grease, I've got the I've got that going for me. All right, to put this guy back together, I've got that flanged in. I'm going to keep it to the outside. I'm going to pop it in here like so. Come on, come on. There we go. Grabbing that outside. It's going to go like that. All right, my 5 minutes of Googling was futile in figuring out an easy way to put this recoil spring and the collar back on, but I figured out a way. Now the primary problem is as soon as you put it up, that, that guide in the middle, that tail that you need goes through. So what I found is just grab a little bit of pipe cleaner, just jam it in there, and then you can safely put it on the table and it'll actually stay put. So now I can put that down. I've got lots of tail now to deal with. I can pop that that collar back on. Just carefully bring it back up. Bada bing, bada boom. There's our recoil spring all ready to rock and roll. Now the bolt carrier itself, you definitely want to clean as well because it's metal and it'll rust, just like everything else will if you shoot corrosive ammo through this thing or just leave it unkept. Again, I'm going to use just some quick cleaner on this, just to get some of the crud that's kind of been sticking on this thing recently. So I'm just gonna get it on there, get whatever's looking kind of a little bit gross. Now definitely on these rails here, you want to get in there and clean those out. So you can just pinch a little bit of paper towel, put in there, or you can grab your handy dandy pipe cleaner and use it to do the same thing. And you'll get in those rails and really clean them well. Now, in the back here where the recoil spring goes, you're not going to get a lot of gas back there and a lot of corrosive stuff, but it's nice to clean that as well. Again, I just use a pipe cleaner for that. And I'm just trying to get her nice and cleaned out. Modify that just a bit. Poke it back in. And get it a little bit cleaner. Now, I'm not going to oil it just yet because I'm going to oil it just before I throw it into the gun. But again, here's where your rag that's starting to get a little bit oily now is going to come into play here because you can use that lightly oiled parts just to really quickly give it a brush over. And then afterwards just use like some of the dry or drier parts of your rag to kind of dry it off. And now I can see that this is quite well oiled and is going to keep. Again, I'm going to throw this in my safe and I might not shoot it for a few months, right? So I don't want this thing like all covered in rust when it comes out. You can see some parts on it are a little bit discolored when I bought it, and I don't want any more to be. Alright, my bolt carrier is looking good. Pop that off to the side. Now the magazine surprisingly gets a ton of crap stuck in there. The best way that I've found to pull this out, if you got a rag, this is really where your rag's going to come in because there's so many sharp edges on this thing that even using like one of these blue shop towels, you can tend to shred them up a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and just stick my fingers and the towel in there, clean underneath those feed lips there on both sides. Let me get my hand in there. And pull it out. And this front area here, I mean, this is just to keep like contaminants from getting in there and holding water and getting next to her pins and starting to rust them out, right? All right, that's looking good. I'm going to clean the outside of it. Again, sometimes some of this stuff will get stuck to the outside. I don't want anything. That's looking... There's just something that's kind of wearing on there, so I'm just going to throw a little bit of cleaner on there. Sorry, it's not wearing. There's just a little bit of grease or something that's just kind of been sticking here for, well, probably since this thing was re-arsenaled. That's looking better. Still giving me a little bit of grief here. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of oil on it now. And just kind of polish it up real quick. That did the trick. Your follower, you want that to be free and able to move, so definitely get it. Now underneath here, there's a couple of little angles here, and again, this is where your pipe cleaner is going to come into play, because you can get right in underneath there, and then you can tilt it up and you can get underneath the other side. So this is going to help clean that out as best as you can, right? You're not going to be able to get this thing perfect, but just to get it really, really nice. And then what I'm going to do is drop just a touch of oil in there, and then I'm going to wait for it to run out the other side. Again, I'm working this this hinge back and forth. My wife's got a Dodge Caravan, and their rear windshield wiper that's supposed to hinge a little bit is rusted shut, and it doesn't want to work anymore. And then we've only had the thing for like 10 years. You don't want that to happen to your SKS. You want this thing to last like decades, right? So definitely get some oil in on your hinge points. Now on the front here, I'm looking at it. I'm just going to throw a little bit on those hinge points again, right here and right here. Just a little bit of oil. And then I'm going to start moving those. Get a little bit on the inside here. There's a lot of oil to use, and honestly it's too much, but I'd rather deal with too much oil than not enough. Because I just clean it off with a rag, right? This can really help with a stiff fixed magazine or some of your stiffer parts. Here's how you tell whether it's a Canadian or an American SKS. Oh, my follower stops there. That's because it's pinned. Because we're only allowed 5 rounds in our semi-autos. So there's that guy. And I'm just going to leave it off the side to just kind of drip some of that excess oil off. Let's see here. I'm left with two of my favorite parts. This is definitely one you want to get nice and clean. If you don't, it can get a little bit sticky in your top receiver there, and I prefer it nice and clean. So what I found with this guy is like definitely lots of lube while you're cleaning it. You won't get it clean just scraping it, not without like getting aggressive on it. I prefer just to use like something water-based, and then just nicely wait for that carbon to like kind of lift off of it. And man, it's still coming off. It's still coming clean. I should have put more work into it the other night, but I kind of get to a point where it's like, it's close enough. I got all the corrosive stuff off. Now it's just a little bit of carbon, and I'm just going to carbon it up next time, right? To get in these grooves here, again, what I like to do is get that pipe cleaner in there, get it nice and tight, and then just twirl it a bit. And then I'm going to grab a different section, and I'm going to grab that other ring. And once this is done, I'm just going to hit this with, again, this shouldn't actually be oiled, but what I'm going to do is just get a little bit of oil on it just to preserve it and keep that water-based stuff from attacking it too much, right? So a little bit of oil on my rag there, wait for it to kind of dissipate a bit, and then just kind of lightly pop it in there. Some of my pipe cleaner came off in that groove. Get out of there. There it goes. Now I'm just going to hit the whole thing, grab down to the tail, make sure that there's nothing coming off of there. It's nice and smooth. Great. it comes to your gas tube, I'm just going to clean right at the tip here. It really gets this like ring of crud going on. So I'm just going to get it really nicely here, just with my finger in there. And I am pulling some good carbon off of there. When you're cleaning this, what you may want to do is use your cleaning rod and a brush to go down in there and kind of scrub it a little bit. Alternative, you may want to use a jag with patches. If you get them stuck in there, you can always like go from the other end and like pop them through. So it's not a big deal that way. But you definitely want to get this nice and clean. This is an area that can rust, and you definitely don't want that rusting against your piston or against your rifle. Now, when it comes to the trigger group, I prefer to keep it clean and dry, less oil on it. But at the same time, I don't want it to rust or corrode. So the name of the game here for me is just preservation. I'm just trying to preserve this trigger group and keep it from rusting. So a lot of these come with rust on them because this wasn't like a part that was commonly taken out of the guns when they're used in service. So you may find some rust here on the side plates here. This one's looking pretty good, so I'm not going to do anything there. If you do want to strike the hammer off to clean in there, you'll need to turn the safety off, and you'll need to move this. There's actually a little window, sorry it was on my side, that you'll see when you push this down to a certain spot, it'll actually let the hammer go. So I'm just going to do that. Oh man, this is way easier to do if I can actually see it. I might just do this on my table real quick, guys. Much easier to do when I can actually see what I'm doing. So all you need to do is move this this down here so it lines up with the other bar, and it can transfer, and it'll work just fine. Now I'm able to clean the back of that hammer. I'm able to clean this strut as well. If you've got like a toothbrush or a nylon brush or something like that, you could clean between the coils. Again, only necessary if it's like looking a little bit cruddy. If it's got a little light sheen of oil on there, I think it's fine. I don't want to throw a bunch of oil or a bunch of garbage on this thing because oil generally attracts dirt. With those other components, I'm fine. I got to clean it anyways every time. But with this one, I'd rather not have to clean it every time. So I'm going to go real light on the oil, and I'm going to really try to dry it up so that I don't have to get in here and get a bunch of dirt out of this this trigger group. These things are a pain in the butt to disassemble, so I'm not really looking forward to that. So I'd rather just keep it nice and clean from the get-go. I'm going to get in behind this the trigger there. You can either use a pipe cleaner or just throw some paper towel in between there. And that's looking good. I'm just gonna check the function on a couple of these things. That guy needs just a touch of oil. Just getting a bit dry. And then just a little bit on this strut. I'm just dragging a little bit of oil across there. Now I can go ahead and pop that hammer back again. It's not going off. I'm going to throw that safety on. My safety feels nice and clicky. Not all SKS safeties are like this. Yours might not be, and that's not your fault. There's nothing you can do to make it like that. It's just some of them are clicky and some of them are kind of mushy and crappy. the spring down there is not doing so well. All right, that brings me to this this assembly. There's only really a couple things I need to clean on here. One's this spigot. I'm going to call it a spigot for now. Sorry if I ruined your day by calling it the wrong thing, but whatever. I'm going to clean around the edge of it because that gets a little bit covered in garbage every once in a while. Again, I'm just going to put a pipe cleaner around there until it grabs in that groove, and then I'm just going to move it back and forth as it's cleaning that groove out. Go from a couple different angles, take a look at it, and it's looking clean because I've already cleaned it. Next, I'm going to clean inside there. Now, this is actually where you're going to have a little bit of corrosive residue that's important to clean out. So I've got that corrosive stuff on there. Water's good, or you could use like a dedicated corrosive cleaner to get that stuff out. But I'm just going to throw it in there. A lot of these corrosive cleaners have ammonia in them, which might clean better. This stuff was cheap enough, so I thought I would kind of worth it. Okay, I'm getting in there. I'm just cleaning out that hollow a bit, because again, it will rust. Next, there's a gas hole that was drilled into the barrel. I'm going to get in that gas hole and get right through it. I'm going to use the end of my pipe cleaner, and I'm going to go at an angle. I'm going to kind of like get in there like that. And I can just feel for it. I've already got it. I've done this a couple of times, but like this shouldn't be too hard for you to get in there. And I can tell I'm in. And I'm just doing this enough to really get that gas port nice and clean. Now, one of the things I got to do now is actually clean that water-based solution out of there. I'm going to use a paper towel for most of this. I'm going to use a nice new pipe cleaner, and I'm just going to get it in there. Grab the other side, get it in there. And I'm not going to use any oil. I'm just going to keep this nice and clean. If you're in a wet environment, you may want to use some. That oil there is going to end up as carbon in your gas system, but that might be a better option than having it rust on you, right? Oh man, that's hard to see with I got a bunch of front lighting here, so I can't see what you guys can see. Oh, I've still got some carbon on the walls. I'm going to grab my dental pick, and I'm just going to clean that out a little bit. Grab my other end here. Now, if you've got a brass brush, that might be a little bit more nice, not so harsh. I'm going to have to go at this for a while. Okay, I'm going to turn the video off, and I'm going to go at this for a while. Alright guys, thanks for hanging tough with me there. I wanted to make this thing real time, but I don't want to waste your time either, right? The next thing I'm going to do is take this spring out here. This is a sealed unit. You don't normally need to take it out, but I'm going to take it out anyways. There's a little plunger there. I'm going to push down on it, and then I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to rotate it up until that semicircle is flat, and it's going to allow this pin out. And you really want to keep your finger on it because it wants to go out. It'll fly off into space here. If you haven't done this before, you might want to wear glasses. Some safety glasses. Keep your eyes safe. This thing's got enough velocity and weight that it will do some damage to your face if it catches you. So definitely watch out. I'm just gonna clean it off real quick here. Roll it in my rag. Where's my brush? Get that spring with my brush here. And that's just because I can't get through the coils with my rag, right? Cool. All right. Check out that rad twisted coil that they could put on these things. Isn't that cool? Put it back on the spring. Leave it off to the side. Now, in terms of that passageway, again, I'm going to pull out my good buddy here, the pipe cleaner. I'm going to get in the small side first. Give it a quick clean. And then I'm going to get on that bigger side. So I'm going to make this thing a little bit bigger. And I'm going to have to eyeball this because it's kind of hard. There we go. And I'm going to clean there. It's not going to come through the other end because the big end is on this side. And that's nice and clean. I'm going to take my nice dry pipe cleaner, jam it in there, and I'm just drying off any of that cleaner residue that's in there. I'm actually going to oil this part because this part is not in the combustion cycle. It's not going to get that hot gas on it, so might as well oil it and preserve it well. You don't actually need to clean this part every time. I don't, because it's not where the corrosive salts are going to get. So I'm just going to give that a real quick clean here. Stick my pipe cleaner in, get it to where the oil is. And then I'm going to give it a quick dry off with a dry end here, just so it's not like sopping with oil. I don't want that. That's not going to help anyone. Dry end through the end here. And that's nice and dry. Now the next thing I'm going to do is clean this this channel here. Basically, I'm just going to use a rag or one of these shop towels here. I'm going to get into the recesses, anywhere that that bolt or the bolt carrier group is going to go along, and also get the outside of the receiver, that flat metal. I want to make sure that nothing gets on there and it starts to corrode. Don't want this to be like that old vehicle that's got rust spots on it and that kind of thing. And the nice thing with the gun is that you can disassemble it every once in a while and make sure it's clean. It's difficult to keep rust off of a 1940s car, but it's actually very easy to keep rust off of a 1940s, or what year was this? 1940s? 1950s? 1953. Imagine having a car from the 1950s. That thing would... you'd have to put a lot of effort into that thing to keep it, but a gun's very easy to keep. They're very simple mechanical devices. So I'm just cleaning it. There's a little elevator guy here. You can take this apart if you want to. There's a pin over here. I really don't recommend it. It's not super necessary. I am gonna raise it. Here, let me see if I can show you guys. Yeah, there we go. I raise it. I'm just gonna clean behind it with my rag, just to kind of get some of that garbage out, if there was any in the first place. This is looking nice and clean. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean the bore out. Now I'd recommend that you pour some hot water down this thing to start with. It's the easiest way to get those corrosive salts out. And then use a cleaning rod or a good quality pull-through style cleaner. The cleaning rod really is the better way to do this, but given that we're just on video here and I've got not as much space, I'm just going to do a real quick pull through here. I'm going to throw a little bit of oil on the start of it, and I'm going to leave the end of it without oil. My idea here, I think this is how they're supposed to work, is that this first part here will oil it, and the rest will kind of dry it off, because I don't actually need oil in the bore. I just want to displace any water, and I want to make sure that it's cleaning out any carbon that might be in there, and the oil should help with that. Oh, I didn't get the whole thing up. Come on. This is not a full clean by any means. Now, normally I'll pull that through a couple of times, and then just on the muzzle here you might want to put some extra pressure with a shop towel or something like that, just to get the bore nice and clean. You may even want to hit it with where's my brass brush? There it is. A brass brush or nylon, something that's not going to wear the finish, something that you're just using to get the carbon residue off of that, and then just kind of circle it a couple of times. It's still looking kind of nasty. Let me just grab a little bit of cleaner here. Yeah, that's better. That's coming off. It's surprising if you like just putting like elbow grease in this isn't enough. You do need to put some solvent or something to get this carbon off of there. All right, that's looking good. I'm gonna take my oily piece there, throw it over. And then I'm going to pull my pull through one more time. Incidentally, you can wash those pull-throughs, so don't just keep using the same grimy old one. Give it a quick wash. Rinse some of that off, because there might be like a flake of steel in there or something like that, and you don't want to be scratching up every barrel every time you pull that pull-through through, just because there's a piece of metal on there that you haven't cleaned. You know, sometimes there's a little bit of garbage up on the front sight there, and you can just get in there with a pipe cleaner again, just kind of clean around it. And that's looking good. Taking a look at my rear sight. Just gonna clean that notch a bit and pop it up, see what's underneath. It's looking pretty clean. And I should probably put this thing back together. Before I get too far, I'm gonna just throw a little bit of oil in these tracks here. My ideal state is to have a thin film of oil on all tracks, and that's for preservation's sake as well as lubrication's sake. So here's where you might want to use something that's got a little bit more lube to it. I'm using 5W20 synthetic because I'm cheap and I like to prove points that cheap stuff works too, even though it's not the best. You know, your standard CLP or a Ballistol or something like that is probably better than your 5W20, but again, I like proving things. So, all right. Now, what I'm going to do, it's nice to have a nice clean piece of paper towel here, and you just want to wipe that down a little bit. Again, I don't want to get rid of all the oil. I just don't want so much oil in there, right? And it is difficult to get enough so that it's actually like getting in and penetrating, and not too much to where you're over oiling. So I just, for something like the receiver, I typically over oil and then just wipe it up. Let's go ahead and throw that short guy in there. So all we're doing here is we're going to wiggle it a bit. It's in there. I'll push it down just before the bottom. It's gonna give you a little bit of problems because it's very tight fit and it needs to hit that back. Oh, come on, you're not even helping with me here. Okay, let's try that again. There it goes, and now I can pull that guy down and it's held in place. I'm just gonna need to pull it up a little bit more. Why don't we go ahead and throw this on the stock? It's kind of handy if you can fit them on, but right there, and lightly tap it in. Just gonna clean that pin a bit. Now, why don't I throw the tube and gas piston? So I'm just going to pop that guy in there. You can see it's coming out the back. That's not my worry right now. I'm gonna go ahead and boop, throw you guys up there. Just very small wiggles here. Again, I don't want to stretch that gas tube up here. I just want it to fit on there. And now I'll push that pin in and push it down into place. This is easier if you've got it level. I was trying to show you guys without it being level. There it goes in, and now I can move this latch down. And now it's latched in, and this is not going to come out. Alright, before I throw on my trigger group, I'm going to go ahead and throw on my magazine. I got my little edge there, got my floor plate, it's all facing up. It is matching up with that right there. Oh, can I do this just by looking on the screen? No, it's pretty dark in there. Yeah, that's not it. That's it. So it should just lever in there nicely. If you feel resistance, like, don't ram it. Just keep wiggling it around until it engages with that lip there. There we go. Now I'm going to grab my trigger group. It's going to engage right up here. There's a little hook, and it's going to engage with these two legs on here. I'm just going to get this magazine more or less out of the way. There we go. Now it's in place. Now for this part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the top of the receiver. I'm going to slap the bottom of the trigger guard. What I'm looking for is for it to engage with that lip there. And it looks like it's in. If I'm worried, I can just slap it again. It's solid. It doesn't need to move anymore. All right. Oh, I'm actually going to leave that unlatched for now. Let's get some bolt group going on here. So I'm going to grab my bolt carrier. I'm going to put it upside down. You see that V-notch there? I'm going to match that up with this V-notch here. That's the back of the gun. This is going to be going towards the front. I'm going to go ahead and grab my recoil spring, curly tail into the bolt. There's a magic... Now Now here's a trick about installing these things. You definitely want to make sure that your SKS is upside down. And the reason is this bolt wants to fall off the carrier, but if it doesn't, if it's upside down. So you just gotta pop it in there, pop it in, and it's in. We still need the dust cover. Dust cover. Sorry, I'm just trying not to hit stuff around my office here, because it moves the camera around. I'm going to make sure that pin is out into the rear. I'm going to put my receiver dust cover on. I'm pulling it back and I'm pushing in with the dust cover. There it is. And now I can push on this pin and push it all the way in, rotate forward. This will be pretty tight on your first ones. The first couple times you disassemble and reassemble. Test my bolt. Test my bolt hold open. Bolt hold open's working okay. Confirm that there's no ammunition in the gun, and test the trigger. If you've done any trigger work, definitely one of the things you want to do, keep your finger on the trigger, rack the bolt, and then test your reset on the trigger. Oh, there's that beautiful SKS trigger pull. Oh, they don't have fantastic triggers, but they're fun to shoot, right? Oh. You can clean them up. You can get a trigger group if you really care. For me, this is a fun gun, and that's why I enjoy it. One of the last things you want to do is just give it the outside a wipe down with a semi-oily rag, or like a non-oily rag if you've already got a bunch of oil on there. And that's just to keep the oil kind of like well distributed and not like pooling on any part of this. If you over oil too often and too much, what'll happen is you'll start getting oil leaching onto your wood, and your wood will get dark and kind of like gross and nasty from all the oil. Don't do that. That's definitely over oiling it. But giving it enough oil to where you preserve this thing, personally, I think should be the goal, because with an old gun like this, you want it to continue running for another 50, 60, 70, 100 years, right? So thanks for watching my SKS disassemble, clean, and reassemble. Thanks for watching.